Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam, and as of this recording I'm currently working on two of the biggest videos I'm going to make all year. But I want to talk about three of the movies that came out on Christmas Day, and those movies being Promising Young Woman, Soul, and Wonder Woman 1984. And I decided to mash them together into one super review video. So I'm going to be talking about Promising Young Woman, Soul, and Wonder Woman 1984 in that order. If there is a certain movie you would like to hear me talk about, the time codes for those will be linked in the description below. And rest assured that no matter what movie I do talk about, it will be 100% spoiler-free, because these movies just came out a couple of days ago, and so I know that there are probably a lot of people that still have not seen these movies. So I will keep this review as spoiler-free as possible. All that I will say is that I highly recommend you check out all of these, at least for one viewing. And with all that out of the way, let's get started by talking about Promising Young Woman. This is the directorial debut of Emerald Fennell. I hope I'm saying that name right. And it starred Carey Mulligan as a woman named Cassie, someone who was supposed to become a doctor, however, due to a series of unfortunate events and a very pronounced trauma, she is basically at the lowest point of her life. At the start of the movie, we see her going on a revenge quest against men who try and pick up drunk women in bars. She soon stumbles upon ghosts from her past and decides to exact a little vengeance. I saw the trailer for this movie back in March. Remember March? And I was sitting there thinking to myself, oh great, it's Black Christmas 2019 all over again. But I sit here pleasantly surprised. This movie was surprisingly really good. Firstly, let's talk about Carey Mulligan, because she is excellent in this movie. Now, if you're new around here, let me just say that I do not give a crap about the Oscars. I think they just don't represent my taste in movies. However, Carey Mulligan should be nominated for an Oscar, at the very least, because she does deserve it. Unlike other movies like this, Emerald Fennell does a great job of making you feel sorry for Carey Mulligan's character, while also saying, hey, just because she is doing something doesn't mean that you should be doing it. There's a fine balance between, yes, you do root for her and want her to get her revenge, but you also agree that her methods are not exactly the best for her or her immediate loved ones. Most movies cannot pull this off to save their lives, but Emerald Fennell did it, and I commend her for that wholeheartedly. Without going too deep into spoilers, I really did also enjoy the supporting cast. Some notables include Clancy Brown as Carey Mulligan's dad. It's always nice to see him. And Alfred Molina, and his character is very important to the story, so that's about as far as I'll go, but I'll just say, he's Alfred Molina. Of course he is great. But on my stream the other night with Rachel over at Rachel's Reviews, where we talked about all three of these movies, I described this movie as like a payday bar. It is delicious, but it is absolutely nuts. And by that, I mean this movie has more twists and turns than the maze from The Shining. I said I would keep this video spoiler-free, so that is about as far as I go. But what I will say is that there are a couple of twists in the movie that are either going to make the movie-going experience for you, or it's going to break it. I've had experience with both sides of this aisle, and thankfully, I bought into it like hook, line, and sinker. But that is just me, of course, and if you do go see this movie, it might not work for you. That's just how this stuff works. If I had to have a problem with the movie, is that there's some jokes that I feel like were very tonally just off-putting. They're not pronounced, but they are there. Like, for example, there is a boy band in this movie called Wet Dreams. No, I did not make that up. It's stuff like that where it just took me out of the movie for a second. You know, like, how in the hell did this band get away with the name Wet Dreams for more than an hour? But thankfully, stuff like that is few and far between. And if you are new around here, I used to have a scale where I would rate new releases. that would be amazing, which is absolutely just near perfection. There's great, which is some problems, but overall it was really well done. Good, where there's noticeable problems, but I still thought it was, well, good for one reason or another. Forgettable, which was some good stuff, but mostly just kind of there. And then horrid, which is like the bottom of the barrel. I would say Promising Young Woman sits comfortably at the great level. I think there are some jokes that are tonally a little off, like I said, but on the whole, this movie surprised me in how good it was, and I look forward to see what Emerald Fennell does next. Soul is the latest offering from Pixar Animation Studios, we all know who they are, and it stars the voices of Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey. It tells the story of a jazz musician named Joe, voiced by Foxx, who by day teaches band at a local middle school, but longs to become a prominent jazz singer. But he is getting long in the tooth in the age department, and it feels like his dreams are just never going to come true. However, after experiencing, well, a near-death experience, his soul becomes detached from his body, and he has to find his soul has to find his way back to his body, with the help of a untethered soul, for lack of a better word, named 22, voiced by Tina Fey. For over 2 decades, Pixar has just been the kings of what they do. They are just the excellence of execution. Even some of their lower tier movies I still quite enjoy. But I think for the first time ever, I really don't know what to make of a Pixar movie. In regards to Soul, that is. Because despite the fact that it is of quality, there's some stuff that just make me scratch my head. Let me get to the good stuff first, because there's plenty of it. Starting with the animation, because I am consistently startled with how good the animation is in Pixar. Just when I think that the animation can't get any better, somehow it gets better. Most Pixar movies take place in fictional cities, but in here it takes place in actual New York City. The city scenes are shot really, really nice, and the animation of the city is great as well. But it's when you get to, I want to say, the afterlife, that it gets even better, because the animation there is just jaw-droppingly fantastic. And the cast of the movie is really good as well. Jamie Foxx is there, he's always good. Tina Fey is a bit of a hit or miss for me, but here she is a hit. Felicia Rashad plays Joe's mother. I can't hate any movie with her in it because she's awesome. But there are some parts of this movie that just left me scratching my head. Like, not in the sense of why did they make this decision, but just in the case of where is this story going. Online, I've seen a lot of comparisons between this movie and Inside Out. And I believe the difference between Inside Out and Soul is that Inside Out, despite the fact that it has very heady concepts, like growing up and all that other stuff, there was the emotional through line of Riley is feeling very complex feelings and she's trying to deal with it the best she can. But in Soul, I think there could be a lack of relatability between the main character Joe and the audience. Because when this movie starts out, Joe is he's seemingly in his mid-40s, like, the jazz dreams are looking more and more dire by the day. It feels like his time is nearly up. And so you would think the story would end with him finally achieving his dream. Well, without going into spoilers, that's not necessarily what happens. I feel like Pixar is trying to tell a bit of a new story, something more abstract than what they're usually doing, and in that regard, I do give them praise. However, I'm not sure if it sticks the landing. This is one of those movies that I'm gonna be thinking about for a very long time, and I think my opinion will change with it over time. But for right now, I do believe, technically speaking, it is very good, like above average. But in the story department, I don't know. There's choices made that I'm not sure if I agree with or I disagree with. I'm going to go on the safe side and say that this movie is just good. I don't think this movie is bad, not even close. there's a lot of time and effort put forth into this movie. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to be thinking about in regards to the story department. All that I will say is that I think it may be a bit of a blessing in disguise that this movie didn't get a theater release, because as someone who worked in a movie theater for over 3 years, like, whenever a Pixar movie came to town, it was standing room only. You couldn't get another person into that theater with Vaseline. But I feel like if Soul were released in optimal circumstances with theaters everywhere open, I'm thinking that it might have a strong opening weekend, but then it might start to trickle off a little. I don't know, that's just me. I am by no means a box office expert, I'm just going off of my own personal experience. My final note on Soul is that it will be interesting to see what reputation this movie will hold in the coming years, and I look forward to revisiting this movie and trying to figure out what this movie's trying to say. Wonder Woman 1984 is the latest chapter in the DCEU. It was released on HBO Max and in theaters at the same time, and this is the sequel to Wonder Woman, which was released in 2017. Wonder Woman is back. This time she's living and working in 1984 in Washington, D.C. But around this time, she catches wind of a wishing stone, which comes into the possession of a businessman named Maxwell Lord, played by Pedro Pascal. Meanwhile, a co-worker named Barbara Minerva, played by Kristen Wiig, starts to get, well, superpowers, and it all leads into one big collision at the end. I'm a DCEU defender. I think if any of you have spent any time on my channel, you'll know that I love Man of Steel. I think in some ways it is misunderstood. I've defended Batman v Superman on a number of occasions, mostly due to the Ultimate Edition, and I've also given them the crap that they deserve, like everything involved with Suicide Squad, and I disliked Shazam. I thought it was just kind of there. But now, having seen Wonder Woman 1984, I think the movie is very disappointing. I know people are already starting to turn on this movie, so let me just provide a point of clarification. I don't think this movie is bad. There is definite effort put forth into it. Patty Jenkins is back. She was the director of the first movie. Gal Gadot is back. Chris Pine is back. Everything about this movie suggests that I should love it. However, I did not, and I'll try and plead my case. First, the positives. Gal Gadot. She's awesome. I think we all know this, but especially here, I think she gives one of her better turns as Wonder Woman. Chris Pine, despite the fact that his return makes absolutely no sense, is a lot of fun in this as well. He has some pretty good jokes. Kristen Wiig is in here, and she's really good as well. Again, I'm a bit hit or miss on her as well. Thankfully, this performance is a hit. And Pedro Pascal is really good, as he usually is. I also enjoyed the action and the special effects. The special effects were really good, and there were many action sequences, specifically the Cairo fight scene and the White House action scene, that were both excellent. And the Hans Zimmer score was really good as well. But of course, it's Hans Zimmer. The day he makes a bad score is the day I win the lottery. It's not going to happen. But my biggest problem with this movie is that it has too much going for it. It has too much story. And after giving it some thought, all of my little smaller things with the movie point into one direction. This movie is way too long. It is 2.5 hours long. It is way too long. I am by no means an editor, but as I was watching this movie, there were several instances where I'm like, okay, that could be a deleted scene. That could have been cut altogether. For example, the scene where Chris Pine is trying on all the 80s clothes, and he's like, parachute pants? Do all people parachute? That's a funny scene, but it totally could have been cut, or at least been just reserved for the trailer. But in a weird roundabout way, because the movie is too long, it also weirdly can't really figure out which story it wants to tell. The movie feels like a Wonder Woman origin story, a Wonder Woman and Chris Pine story, a Max Lord story, and a Cheetah origin story. That's 4 movies rolled up into one. And despite the fact that I have defended Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, I will be the first to say that the movie is essentially Man of Steel 2, a Batman origin story, and a Justice League movie all rolled into one. That's 3 movies in one. So I'm not blind to the penchant for the DCEU to try and cram everything into one. But I think I can be more forgiving towards Batman v Superman because it all is leading towards one climactic battle between Batman and Superman. But in Wonder Woman 1984, I really don't know where the movie is going. And not in a, oh, I'm so excited where this could go, like in an unpredictable kind of way, where I'm just sitting there like, where is all of this going? Why is this here? I'll be the first to say that I don't think that Cheetah and Max Lord deserve to be in this movie. This movie needed to pick one villain and go with them. And I think Max Lord was the far more interesting choice. His character, despite the fact that this movie tries so desperately to make him a Donald Trump avatar, I thought his arc was far more nuanced. In the comics, Cheetah is actually far better. Like, in the comics, she is a British archaeologist who comes from a very rich family, who goes after Wonder Woman because she is jealous. Wonder Woman has things that she does not have. All of that is set off to the side, and Cheetah in this movie is essentially a nerd, who, over the course of the movie, becomes a supervillain. That has been done several times that I can think of. And also, everything involving Chris Pine and just other little details like that, it just kept pulling me out of the movie, and I just kept saying to myself, how does that work? And at the end of the day, I think Wonder Woman 1984, on my scale, is just forgettable. Not bad. There's clearly a lot of effort put forth into this. The music, the action, Gal Gadot, Chris Pine, and all of the acting is really good. Unfortunately, I think they were just bogged down by a script that needed a couple of rewrites, which is unfortunately one of the DCEU's biggest problems. And if any of you are saying Marvel bias, I just said that I have defended Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice because of the Ultimate Edition, and I think Man of Steel is a great movie despite its problems. There is no bias. All of these problems are coming from somebody who is a DCEU fan and wants this series to succeed. And at the end of the day, if I had to rank all 3 of these movies, I am shocked to say that Promising Young Woman was my favorite out of all of them, followed by Soul with, I want to say, not a distant second, but a regular second, and then Wonder Woman 1984. I'm just as shocked as you. But coming up this next week, it is the final week of 2020, so I'm going to be dedicating that to ranking lists. I'm going to be releasing 2 ranking videos, the first being a Pixar ranking and the second being a DCEU ranking. And then we'll be on to 2021, and it all starts again. But that is all from me, guys. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and if you like this video and you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way, when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.